All right, welcome to part 2 of social distillation. Uh, Very different from where we started, although it came from the same place, which was
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl commercial that finally pushed me over the edge, which was the "He Gets Us" ads, which these have been gnawing at me for a while. And while some of the people I listen to have gone, I don't even remember what episode it's from, but the gif from The Simpsons of the guy with the flamethrowing and laughing maniacally. I've heard a lot of that about this ad. So the Christian conservative evangelical community is generally not on board with what's going on here. But why? And I'm going to start actually before we get to the verses in the New Testament that directly address what that ad was all about, which there were two of them, and I'm specifically talking about the foot washing ad. Is something that's been noodling around in the back of my brain is this thought: why does the second commandment exist?
Second commandment is
All right,
thou shalt not worship
idols.
idols. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to be reading from Prager's Rational Bible Exodus because I like his translation here. And so this is chapter 20 of Exodus, is where this begins, uh, where Moses has gone up and God is going to issue the Ten Commandments. Um, God spoke all these words, saying, I, the Lord, I, the Lord, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, which reminding you what just happened. Why? Because we're people and people suck. The house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. That's the first one. Um, and there's a commentary, Ellicott's commentary for English readers, which is one of the ones that comes up on Bible Hub if you pull it up. Um, it makes the point that the Hebrew used here is um, beside or in addition to. So what it is very specifically telling the Hebrews is, yeah, I know you grew up in Egypt where they had all these gods and all around you is the same way. You are not to be tempted to polytheism. It's just me here. Well, then it goes on, you shall have no other gods before me or beside me. And then in verse 4, you shall not make for yourself a sculpted image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or earth below, or in the waters under the earth. Well, it would seem that the previous verse just covered that, didn't it? Yes, but one of the recurring themes of the Old Testament, especially, is because we're people and people suck. So, in this specific example, God just reminded them, I brought you out of bondage from Egypt. You're literally seeing signs because the Israelites are in awe and afraid of what is going on up on the mountain because the presence of God is there and there's this supernatural effect and it's freaky. And yet, despite all of this, what is happening at the base of the mountain while Moses is up receiving the Ten Commandments? They are literally building an idol out of gold so that they can worship it.
Sorry, I'm looking
I
something up.
okay. I like the way um, Prager has a very long essay on the first commandment, and uh, basically the way he phrases this is that when anything, talking about the first commandment, is made an end in itself, rather than as a means to God and goodness, it is a false God. And the second commandment ties into that because we like things. We are tangible creatures. It is sometimes very difficult for us to wrap our heads around the existential and metaphysical. So we will take a thing because we can see it, we can touch it, we can use it, and that thing will then become an idol. It will become a false god. It will become an end in and of itself. And in the long essay on the first commandment, Prager breaks this up into several specific examples of what can become a false god: art, love, reason, religion, and faith. These all can become false gods when they become the end in and of itself rather than the means to goodness. Now, where is the one on education? So this one is particularly interesting, and hopefully will trigger you because that's always fun. Where is it?
You do realize I'm the least triggerable person you
I,
know.
I know, I know. Dang it. Where is it? All right. So this is about how education can become a false god, and uh, he makes the point that, well, let me just read this rather lengthy segment here. Nowhere is the belief in education as the road to a more moral society more apparent than in some of the later writings of the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. In 1927, Freud, an atheist who was deeply committed to moral behavior, published a critique of religion, The Future of an Illusion, the illusion being God and religion. Freud did not fear the breakdown of belief in God would have any moral implications among intellectuals. Quote, civilization has little to fear from educated people and brain workers. In them, the replacement of religious motives for civilized behavior by other secular motives would proceed unobtrusively, end quote.
Well, he missed something there, and this is amongst religious and non-religious people, is the human's propensity towards hubris. The I know what I need to know. It's what we talk about in Wheel of Time. It's Egwene's problem. We need to unite, but we need to unite under me. That's the only way it's going to work. And that's kind of the normal human. Well, amongst the people who have that motivation to be somebody. I mean, the I just want to be left alone and do my job kind of person, probably not. But that they're the people that supply the power to those that.
And I think that's why Prager is using Freud here and using this passage specifically to illustrate his point of when anything is made an end to itself, because that was the failing of the secular as well as the religious.
Wait, hold on just a second. You're glitching here. Let me pause this for a second.
All right, so internet hiccup there, but you were
Yeah,
talking
and we
about,
don't know what came through.
yeah.
So if we're repeating something, then
All right,
bear with it.
so your point about hubris, and I think that's why Prager is using this statement from Freud as an example, because um as he says that within 10 years of Freud making that statement, all hell was going to break loose in Austria and Germany, and very, very few of Freud's fellow intellectuals were going to stand up to the awfulness that was going to happen. And then going back to quoting Prager here, many would counter here that Germany lacked enough good people among the religiously educated as well. they would be entirely right. The failure of German Christianity was horrific, but the moral failure of German Christians, with noble exceptions such as Dietrich Bonhoeffer, is almost universally acknowledged, even by virtually all Christians. On the other hand, the moral failure of secular education and secular intellectuals in Germany is almost universally ignored. And I would add to that also the uh, scientifically atheistic communist governments as well, and
Hmm.
the horrors of the Soviet Union and China. The point being, and this is something that we've talked a little bit about before as well, is that this is the atheist plus silliness of
I was going to talk about that, but you got it.
yeah,
All right.
the, you can be an atheist and make atheism your own religion.
Hmm.
You can be a Christian and make religion with a capital R the end in and of itself, and completely forget what it is that the religion is supposed to do for you. It is supposed to be a means to a higher end. Where is all this going, and how does this relate to the he gets us nonsense? Well, there are a lot of people out there calling it heretical, and I'm not prepared to go that far just yet, but I will say it is very misguided, and it is potentially leading people astray. And uh, what it is, this particular ad but then also all the other ones I've seen, they all make me think of one thing in particular. Hey, Buddy Christ from Dogma, which is both an overrated and an underrated movie because it has its moments. Every time I see one of these he gets us ads, I think of Buddy Christ. That that is what that has become, the idol, if you will, of this brand of Christianity, is selling Buddy Christ rather than selling actual Christianity.
I got our meme already.
Oh, do you have a Buddy Christ
I have
meme?
a Buddy Christ meme. Yes.
Um, to that point, what I mean by that
I've
is
got some
that
pictures if people want visuals. Do you want me to put them
of
up as you're talking?
what?
From the commercial, still shots from the commercial.
Oh, I'm getting to the commercial in a second. Okay. First, let me um no. Where was it? Yeah, let me do this first. Um and then I'll go back to that. All right. So now go away. Wrong window. All right, here we go. All right, so before we get to the commercial, I wanted to look at the actual passage. Okay? Because the foot washing is coming from a very specific passage, John 13, Gospel of John, chapter 13. All right. And this is from the New King James Version. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come, that he should depart from this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And supper being ended, the devil having already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter said to him, Lord, are you washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, What I am doing to you, you do not understand now, but you will know after this. Peter said to him, You shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not all of you. for he knew who would betray him. Therefore he said, you are not all clean. And then it goes on to where he confronts Judas. The reason this is important is because, generally speaking, the big problem with the He Gets Us ads, and then even if you go onto their website, is that they are excusing in trying to accept the secular rather than confronting the secular.
Oh, I see where you're going. Well, yeah, that plays into the screenshots I got. So
And it's I when I was looking for the ad, I went to the website, which made it even worse rather than just going to their YouTube channel because um on their ad, foot washing. This is how they summarize the passage I just read. The night before he died, Jesus washed the feet of his friends and enemies. It was a totally unexpected act of service that symbolized so much more. Sam, is that how you would characterize the passage that I just read? Jesus washed the feet of his friends and enemy.
well, surface level. I mean, technically, yes, but at the same time, that wasn't the meaning of the passage.
Well, my problem with it, and I was annoyed that I didn't think of this, and I had to hear someone else say it. This particular thought isn't mine. Is that he didn't just wash anybody's feet, which is what the ad is doing. He washed the feet of his disciples. The foot washing part of it was an anointing. It was, and that's where the exchange with Peter is you have been bathed, you have been around me through this ministry, but you still haven't gotten it. So you have been bathed, so you are mostly clean, but we live in the desert and we wear sandals. Your feet are nasty. I need to wash your feet.
Well,
So,
there's an important part to it that you said that the accepting of the secular versus uh the main point of
mhm,
what it was for. The important part was his statement: if you do not allow me to wash your feet, you're not with me. There's still, I mean, if you're looking at power dynamics, which everybody in this sphere does, Jesus still had the power dynamic there.
mhm,
You're not with me if you don't let me do this
yes.
for you. And if you take that statement and flip it to all the things that happened in that commercial, what does that say versus what they were trying to say?
Mhm. There's also, I like the Cambridge commentary on this chapter in verse 4. It makes the point that this in part may have been a tacit rebuke to the disciples for, quote, the strife among them, which of them should be accounted the greatest. Because just a few chapters before, they're arguing with each other and they ask Jesus, which one of us is the greatest? Which one of us is the best of your disciples? And this act of service, lowly service by him to them, was also making the point that you guys aren't getting it yet. You still aren't getting it. Um do where is the one of these uh, and to your point, the power dynamic is important because that comes up several times through Jesus's ministry, that baptism being the obvious example, this isn't just a physical act. This is a physical act that is representative, again, back to where I started, that the act itself isn't an end in and of itself. That would make baptism an idol, which there are places in the Bible where people are rebuked for making these um oh, what's the word I'm looking for? These traditions, if you will, making them ends in and of themselves, and these various people and churches are rebuked for that. You saying you've missed the point. The point of this was something deeper, and you're sitting here arguing about the act itself. um where is it? The ah, yeah. So another commentary on this, which utilizes the original Greek, makes the point that what he Jesus did was not the external work of washing, which is what Peter took it to be, but that which was washing signified in the mind of Jesus, namely of morally purifying, of ministering. Um, and then you see Peter, who is such a great human example because he is so often earnest and eager and exuberant, and then falls flat on his face. So, keeping in mind, for anyone who's had the slightest bit of Sunday school,
That was a bad turn of phrase because didn't he get crucified upside down?
all right, I didn't mean it like that, but ooh, stinger. Yes, yes, he did. According to tradition, he did not want to be crucified like his Lord, so has to be crucified upside down. Ouch.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah, let's make it
Ice
worse.
Spice or whatever her name was up in the booth with Taylor Swift had an upside down cross with Peter on it on her that day.
Yeah,
So there's the lot of the satanic
yeah,
conspiracy
wondering
theories
what
going
that's
on.
all
Yeah.
about. But so Peter is singled out here in the text, and he doesn't get it, but he thinks he does, and he's so earnest that when Christ is trying to tell him the actual significance of this, and Peter goes, oh well, then wash my hands and my head too. you know I don't know what's going on here, but I want more of it.
Yeah.
And you know he's such a great human example because there's the earnestness, the eagerness there. His heart is clearly in the right place, even if he doesn't get it. But what's about to happen here in a chapter or two? He's going to deny Christ 3 times. So is he making this washing an idol? He's making it an end. This is why I think you can infer this is what leads to the denial. Is he still doesn't get it, and it's going to take the punch in the face of watching his Messiah, his teacher, his mentor be tortured and put to death before he really truly gets it. Um,
Well, and you see that in the disciples. They're to me as the secular one of us, they're caricatures of human nature. Another good example, probably one of the best example. Well, Judas is a good example, but the one I was thinking of off the top of my head was doubting Thomas, right?
mhm.
We all have these parts of our nature, and some of us more so than others. And when you look at the story, the way the stories are told, they're all lessons of this is how this can go too far. And you're talking about Peter in this way, and yes, that he's the he's almost a little bit of the zealot, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
He's the he takes you give him an inch and he goes a mile with it. Uh, whereas Thomas was the skeptical one. He's the whoa, whoa, whoa. I need to see evidence of it. He was the scientist of them, right? I need to see the physical evidence of this. Well, you can't have a physical evidence of the metaphysical, right? Uh, and then there's Judas, who's the part of us that has a price. What's your price? His was a certain amount of silver. It says the
30
amount of silver.
pieces.
Yeah, 30
30
pieces of
pieces of
silver,
silver.
which I
Yep.
don't know what translates to today's dollars, but probably around 20 million because that's what got Kelsey to do the Pfizer ad. But
Okay.
which might be worth less because we're not backed by silver anymore. But it's
Who knows?
who knows. But yeah, the you see, that's why they call them parables. They're all lessons, right? And yeah, go ahead and keep going so we can pull it to the commercial.
All right, so let me finish up with the last the meta thought on why this ad in particular and these ads in general have annoyed me for a long time, and they've been playing in football a lot, so I've been seeing them for months because they can all generally be lumped into the idea of Buddy Christ, of the sweater vest wearing preacher who never wants to I don't even want to say sweater vest. Joel frickin' Olstein, just in the news because he is, you know, the favorite preacher of some of the more secular, and that did not protect him from having someone who apparently went in to get their manual transmission changed to an automatic transmission and then went in and tried to shoot up the church. On Oprah, I think it was, where he said, "Well, I don't like to preach about sin. I just like to preach about hope." Hey, bub, apparently you haven't read that Bible that you swing around because they're both in there. In that, that's why I wanted to read that whole section of John 13 about the foot washing, because where does it end? But not all. It ends with a rebuke. What is the one verse that everyone likes to cite if you bring up sin or anything close to it? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. You can't judge me. Okay, well, let's look at stones and casting, shall we? John chapter 8. So same gospel from the foot washing. Then the starting in verse 3 here, then the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what do you say?" This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. I love this passage because it drives me crazy that what was he writing? Nobody knows, but um, it's an instance where, much like when they come to him and ask which is the greatest commandment, Jesus is being a little cheeky here, um, because he knows that this is a trap, but he's smarter than they are. So when they continued asking him, he raised himself up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first." And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had raised himself up and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, "Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I condemn you." Okay, and that's where it ends. Oh, wait, no, there's a little bit more there. Go and sin no more. And then the whole point of this instance, then Jesus spoke to them, his disciples, the people there that he was teaching. "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." Mercy triumphs over judgment. That's the point of the New Testament versus the Old, if you will, in a nutshell. And actual Bible scholars could probably say it better than I can. But the point of the New Testament is that mercy now triumphs over judgment. That doesn't mean there is no judgment. Why did Christ say what he said? Because he knew it was a test, because he knew the intent of these people, and you see it in the reaction, because he pricked them in their conscience, because they knew we're not doing this to follow the law. The law is our idol. We aren't doing it for the to to attain a good and moral society, we're doing this because we're vindictive, because we want to get this guy, because we want to trap him in a way that we can accuse and punish him. And so he turned it back on them. And he basically, what he is saying here is, you don't understand the point of the law. You're using it as an idol. Let me tell you the point of the law. He who is without sin casts the first stone. And then he says to her, you don't just get off scot free because they're sinners too. No, no, you go and sin no more. That part is completely absent from all of this he gets us nonsense.
Which is funny because the movement, we talk about him a lot, Big Brain Sapolsky with his no free will kind of argument, his whole point is removing righteousness from our decision making, whether that's punishment or self-aggrandizing, both directions. And this is where Freud missed the boat. Was, of course, he was coked up half the time, but there is that. Is he this on the secular side? There is equally as much self-righteousness as there is in the crowd that was around the woman at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what there are people that aren't like that, and that's where we need to gravitate, whether they're religious or not. Whether they're actually doing, like you're talking about, following what the message of what Jesus was doing versus just looking at a surface level. Oh, well, we're going to do this and we're going to make this commercial and we're going to,
Mm-hmm.
Or even in the other side, well, you're a sinner, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing versus follow the science. That's why, when you talk about being triggered or whatever, when I heard we are the science, follow the science, I heard the exact same thing as when someone says, the answer is we need Jesus. To me, they were the same message. They were exactly the same message.
It is the, yes, the we are the science is the evangelist trying to convince the unbeliever by using the Bible. So, well, wait a minute. That's not how that's very circular, man. That's not how that works. But now you said you had some screenshots, and so I'm curious what screenshots you had uh, to pull up to show as examples
Well, okay,
of this
I
nonsense.
mean, I'll let you finish and let me bring a secular part in this. Okay, so let's just look at what there is. Okay, so here's one screenshot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got the cop washing the obviously inner city black man's feet. Now, what we don't get from this one is, was this a gangbanger or was this a regular guy trying to live his life? Was he on the streets or was he walking the streets? There's so much we don't get with this one, but it is pretty obvious where the direction of the message, right? The cop is washing the dude's feet. You don't see the other side, right? So there's a one directional thing. Had there been the next frame and it been the reverse roles, which it could have been, because you see the cop has his shoes off too,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could have done that, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't. And so what they didn't do, what's missing, is always the biggest clue versus what somebody does, right? So we got that one. Then we got this one. This was the one that stuck out because obviously these are not documented migrants. These are undocumented migrants. We'll call them, to be politically correct. who I'm going to use correct terminology, because the argument is calling them illegal aliens is calling somebody illegal. I'm going to call them migrants who came illegally, because you cannot argue with that.
Yeah.
These are human beings that did an illegal act. These are migrants that came illegally. Now, the other thing that on this one that sticks out at me, look at her face. At least on this one, we've got
Mm-hmm.
two people that might be having a human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Look at her face. Does this look like someone who is
There's a lot of
accepting?
that looks like a lot of self-righteousness to me.
Yeah, it is. It is a "you are my servant." Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you better. That's the face there. You better. how could you not? And so that really came out. And we go back to one of their previous commercials. This was not a Super Bowl ad. They did a whole commercial based
Mhm.
on this. Jesus was a refugee, except these
Yes.
people. So
Yeah.
so to me, this is what I see. From the secular point of view, that's what I see. I'm sorry I didn't get a bigger picture there, but for those that are just listening, there's a Trojan horse there. So let's look at the campaign. Who funds this campaign? This guy, David Green. He is the CEO, entrepreneur that started Hobby Lobby. Oh, wait, he was a key advisor to Dan Walker. Who's Dan Walker? Oh, member of the Democratic Party, 36th governor of Illinois. Oh, now we see what's going on. Who wants migrants in this country? Who wants to defund the police? Who wants all of the things that they put in benign ones, like the one that was on the cover that you showed in the video. The
Mhm.
I guess it was the rich girl washing the
Yeah,
awkward girl's feet, you know.
it's the popular girl, the blonde girl with the, buzz cut, redheaded gender studies girl, you know, the okay, so the outcast in the popular crowd. So there are a few of those, but literally, and this was actually, you made my last point on this, which is, this is where it is either entirely political, or at best dangerously blind. And this is why I ended on the last verse I brought up was the go and sin no more, because there is no confrontation. Now, you can confront someone without being confrontational. And to your point, with that first image of, all right, so here you have what looks like the white cop washing the black guy's feet. Why didn't we see the other direction? Where was the Antifa member washing the feet of the guy wearing the MAGA hat?
Well, and
Right?
here's where I think the Trojan horse lies. So what they're presenting, and this is Wikipedia, so take this as the people who want the message to go are the ones who are allowed to contribute. The campaign primarily targets younger demographics and religious skeptics, and it contains allusions of social justice, uh, referring to different things. So it contains allusions to social justice. So the way they worded that there was they're spreading the message of Jesus and trying to put the net out to this crowd of secular people who are going to be convinced by a message of social justice. But, big but here, looking at the funding that goes into this, what it is trying to get Christians to feel bad and take on and adopt a social justice attitude. That's the real thing. This is
Mhm.
this is this is one of those projection things. So they're saying that we're trying to reach this net out to these secular people to get Jesus in their lives. But the real message is to take people who already are influenced by the writings of Jesus and pull them into a social justice
Mhm.
movement. Otherwise, these things would have showed both sides or would have been more neutral in their wording or and not and actually had different messages on the topics that they cover, like the refugee one.
And when you go to their website and you look at, so they have little articles that go along with all of these videos, which the hashtag topic of whatever the video happened to be, whether it be refugees or what were some of the other ones here, relationships, hope, activist struggle, love, judgment, blah 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 blah. They never lead you to um a fuller understanding of what is actually in the gospel, of what the uh this and of yes but, no, However, there never is that balancing factor. It is always very one-sided. It is always, to your point, trying to shift Christianity to only look at what we would in modern parlance call a social justice agenda. There is no other part to it. So it is very difficult to give the benefit of the doubt and not say this is straight up heretical.
Yeah. So this actually connects to part one. What is your Achilles heel? You talked about me being triggered, right? The Achilles heel is what triggers you into an action, right? And the Achilles heel of a very well-meaning Christian conservative is the teachings of Jesus. If you can present it in a way that says, oh my gosh, maybe I am being a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
then you can sway them in the direction you want because that's their Achilles heel. If you can present it in a way that convinces that person who values this thing probably above everything else, then they might be swayed in the direction you want and into the politic you want. On the academia side, the follow the science was an Achilles heel to a lot of these people. Sam Harris is a great example. Follow the science, Trump bad. There's your Achilles heel. And just as I talked about with training the whole body earlier, I do try to train. I know where my Achilles heels are, and I'm working on them. But I do try to train my whole mind so I don't get triggered by things because the
Mm-hmm.
trigger is your Achilles heel. I already told you why I couldn't be a cop because
Yeah.
responding
Yeah.
responding to the first domestic violence situation, I would take the woman's side, even with all the knowledge of how women manipulate that system,
Yep. Yep.
I still would, in the heat of the moment, probably take her side, 100%, 99.9%, take her side and do bad things or be a little over aggressive with the guy in the situation. And I know I would do that, so I could never be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on that and I'm trying, and I'm also avoiding the situation by never being a cop. Good thing I'm too old to join anyways now. But I do have friends that are cops and I do not envy their job.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but as far as politically, intellectually, not being married to any of these things actually makes it so much easier to not get triggered.
Yeah.
But the very especially your the demographic, and to get us canceled, there is one demographic that determines every election. And you've talked about this in our Trump talks, the suburban female. It is the only demographic that doesn't stay consistent from election cycle to election cycle, which, if you take that, then they are the ones who have determined every president since at least Reagan, and or at least probably since suffrage, since women's suffrage came through. And they're the most likely to be swayed that by this because most of them are Christians. And most of them don't want to be seen as mean.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that, because where I was going is that the He Gets Us campaign and things like it, they have made niceness their idol.
Mm-hmm.
Being nice is the end in and of itself. Well, you're supposed to turn the other cheek. Yeah, let's use Peter again, because he's such the great example for, the fallible human whose heart is in the right place. A few chapters later, what's about to happen? Jesus is going to get betrayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, and they're going to come to arrest him. What happens? Peter, being the exuberant fellow that he is, draws his sword, strikes at one of the men who have come to arrest him, and cuts off his ear. Christ rebukes it, Peter, and with it calms the situation, says, no, that this is not the time for that. You don't understand what's going on. And he picks up the ear and he puts it back on, and heals the man. However, there are other times where Christ explicitly tells his followers to arm yourself. So you can't make niceness your idol unless you just want to black out those sections where Christ says specifically to arm yourself, to prepare to defend yourself. In the same way that you brought up Harris, Trump is an idol for both sides. Trump is the idol for the Trump deranged of, he they have piled on all the evil of the world onto him, and he is
To use
so
their own words,
terrible.
he's an asteroid hurtling towards Earth.
He is
That is their own
so
words. Yeah.
terrible that they can rationally make irrational decisions. Same thing with the other side. They love him so much that no matter what he says, they can rationally make irrational decisions. We have to vote for this guy to protect us from the jab mandates. He's the guy who started it all. Doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
cuck.
And even saying that he wouldn't have mandated them is a counterfactual. You cannot prove it one way or the other. It's
Mm-hmm.
unfalsifiable.
Yeah. So this is why nobody likes me, because both sidesism, yes, it can be used as a fallacy, but it can also be used to point out that both sides are a-holes, which is the point of the Bible as a piece of intellectual philosophy. Set aside the theology of it, whether you believe or not. The reason you should study it is because the Bible is not a history of what was, even its prophetic parts. It's not just a prophecy of what is what will always be, because it is a treatise on human nature. And you need to understand that
Well,
this
thanks for
is what
finally
we are
agreeing to
susceptible
me.
to. This is what we are susceptible to. These are the things we do when we are at our weak, when we are weak and we are not morally and intellectually strong. And this is what it leads to. This is the harm that it does.
Let's go ahead and take this to a close because I got a client in about 13 minutes and he's doing bench press today and I just was working out when we started this. So I probably need to wash my balls first because I will be spotting him. I do
Speaking
try
of
to
being
I
speaking of
do
being
try to
kind
respect my
to
clients.
others.
Yeah. Uh, it, so I'm gonna do that. Do you want any closing statements in the next minute or so?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Well, we'll bring this home. I called it a Trojan horse. You called it against scripture. I think we're both correct. And shoot, like, share, comment.
Mm-hmm.
These are the kind of things that should get the good comments, right? Religion
Briefing.
and politics in
Yeah.
one. We broke every Thanksgiving rule right here.
Oh, now I want some sweet potato pie. All right. Well, we will see y'all tomorrow for some Wheel of Time funness.
All right. We'll see you then.